Most people believe learning Mandarin or any languages takes years. Honestly, I don't blame you. Because traditional language learning often looks like this. You have 2 to 3 classes per week. One textbook trying to cover everything. Random vocabulary lists, difficult grammar rules, endless tests and exams. The school system drag it out for years and you study for years. Yet, you still struggle to hold conversation or express yourself naturally after all this time and effort. And eventually, most of you conclude and believe this. Language learning is really hard. Or even worse, Mandarin is impossible for me. I used to believe that too when I was learning English. I studied English since primary school, but yet not be able to express myself clearly when I got to high school. But then something interesting happened. My spoken English went through a big breakthrough within just 1 or 2 years when I was in university. And the crazy part was, it wasn't because I suddenly learned thousands of new words or complicated grammar. I was mostly using the words or structure that I already knew before. The real difference was, I changed the system and the method that I used to learn. And after teaching English for years and now teaching Mandarin myself, I honestly don't think the biggest problem is yourself. And I don't even think the biggest problem is the language itself. The biggest problem is most students are learning language in a very inefficient way. Because if you use the right system, the right practice method, and focus on the right things, reaching a conversational level in Mandarin within 1 or 2 years is very, very realistic. Information is easy to find today. You can get vocabulary from app, YouTube, textbook, or AI. But knowing what you should focus on, how you should practice, how to memorize words efficiently, and how to actually build speaking ability fast, that is the difficult part. I want to completely change the way that you think about learning Mandarin. So in today's video, I want you to know you do not need thousands of words before you can start speaking. In fact, a surprisingly small numbers of words already cover most daily conversation. And I will explain why in today's video. Hello, my name is Jeannie. I'm a Mandarin coach. I help Mandarin beginner who struggle with tones and pronunciation fast-track their progress and finally start speaking Mandarin confidently. Over the past year, I worked with students who start from completely zero and help them reach their first 5-minute Mandarin conversation in about 3 months, without drowning in hundreds of characters, difficult grammar rules, or endless memorization, saving them years of unnecessary time, effort, and frustration. One of the biggest things I realized after teaching students is this. Most beginners are not learning Mandarin the wrong amount. They are learning it the wrong way. Because today, you already have unlimited access to information. You can find vocabulary lists, grammar explanation, apps, YouTube video, AI, everywhere. But the real question is, how do you actually use all of that information to become conversational faster? That's exactly what we're talking about today. One of the biggest reasons Mandarin feels slow is because your learning is often stretched out over many years. Maybe this sounds familiar to you. You study once or twice a week. You memorize vocabulary for class. Then a few days later, forget about most of it. And because there's very little speaking, very little repetition, and very little daily exposure, your brain never gets enough repetition to make the language automatic. Imagine you're going to the gym twice a week for 20 minutes, and you're expecting a dramatic transformation quickly. So language learning works very similarly. The issue is often not the Mandarin is impossible. The issue is low repetition, low speaking time, low exposure, and focus on the wrong thing. This might surprise many Mandarin beginners. A lot of students think, before I can speak Mandarin, I probably need to memorize thousands of words first. But actually, that is not true. Yes, there are over 50,000 Chinese characters recorded in dictionary, but honestly, Even as a native speaker, there are still characters and words I don't even know. So if your goal is, let me memorize everything at first, then I speak, then you probably feel overwhelmed forever. But here's the interesting part. Researchers on language frequency shows that the most common 100 words often cover around 50% of daily speech. 500 common words can cover roughly 70 to 80% of everyday conversation. And around 1,000 high-frequency words can cover nearly 85 to 90% of spoken conversation. So think about that for a second. You do not need 10,000 words to start speaking Mandarin. You just need the right words. Because human conversations are actually very repetitive. Think about your daily English conversation. You probably repeat words like this. I, you, want, go, think, eat, work, today, tomorrow, maybe, really, very, because, so, tired, happy, something like that. Again, and again. And Mandarin works exactly the same way. But the problem is, most students are not learning based on frequency, they are learning based on the textbook chapters. So instead of learning the most useful words first, you end up memorizing random vocabulary that barely helps you communicate. This is probably one of the biggest mistakes I see beginners make. You spend enormous amount of time memorizing nouns like 飞机、大象、草莓、博物馆、冰箱. Now, don't get me wrong, nouns are, yes, useful. But nouns alone itself do not create conversation. The real powers comes from verbs, adjective, adverbs, connector, sentence structure. Because once you learn one useful verb or sentence structure, you can create dozens and dozens of sentences. For example, 想, want to. Once you know this one word, then you can create a sentence like below. Just simply putting some new words which you can get it from Google. Like, 我想喝咖啡, 我想睡觉, 我想回家, 我想学中文. Or another example, 我觉得. Now after Google some new words, then you can say those following sentence like, 我觉得这个很难. 我觉得他人很好. 我觉得很累. 我觉得这个很好吃. You see that? One word unlock many conversations. This is one reason many beginners stay stuck for long. Because you're trying to memorize the isolated vocabulary instead of building speaking tools. Here's another huge misunderstanding about language learning. A lot of students think you need huge study session, extreme motivation, and hours every day. But actually, small daily repetition is often much more powerful. Let's do simple math. Imagine you only learn 30 useful words per week. Sounds small, right? And that is totally around 4 new words per day. That sounds even tiny. But after a year, that becomes over 1,500 words. And remember, 1,000 high-frequency words already cover most daily conversation. Now, even you are much lazier than that. Let's say you only learn 15 useful words per week. That is roughly 2 words per day, so only 2. So after 1 year, that's still around 780 words. And that still covers 80% of the daily conversation. Now imagine if those words are repeated consistently, spoken loud, used in a sentence, connected to daily life, and practiced through conversation. Your speaking ability can improve much faster than you think. So this is why I personally designed my teaching around small daily practice. Because consistency beats intensity every single time. One thing I've noticed after teaching Mandarin is this. The student who improve fastest are usually not the students studying the longest. They are the students who repeat more, speak earlier, focus on high-frequency vocabulary, and actively use Mandarin. For example, one of my students, Lisa, starts from completely zero. Instead of trying to memorize thousands of random words, we literally focus heavily on pronunciation and tone first, high-frequency words, sentence pattern, and speaking from the beginning. And within around 3 months, she was already having basic Mandarin conversation that lasts much longer than 5 minutes. Not because she memorized everything, but because she learning the right things first and repeating them consistently. Because language is a skill, not memory competition. That's something many students never realize. By the way, if you'd like to check my student Lisa's progress, you're welcome to check the video here. If you're stuck at Mandarin beginner level, struggling with pronunciation and tone, and want to finally start having real conversation, then join my program, Mandarin Breakthrough for Beginners. I'll help you build clear pronunciation, master the tones, and constantly hold your first 5-minute Mandarin conversation within 3 months. So overall, I really want you to stop believing this idea that Mandarin naturally takes forever. Yes, Mandarin is different from English, and yes, Mandarin tones and pronunciation matters, but the bigger issue is often you are learning inefficiently. If you focus on, like I said, high-frequency vocabulary, speaking early, repetition, pronunciation and tone, and practice daily, consistently, then you can progress much faster than most people think. So, if you are currently learning Mandarin, did you used to believe that learning a language requires a long time, like 5 years or 10 years? And how many words did you think that you needed before becoming conversational in Mandarin? And after watching today's video, has any of those beliefs changed? Welcome to leave a message and let me know. So thank you so much for watching today's video, and I will see you in the next one.